The Social Security Board of Trustees released their annual report earlier this month on the condition of Social Security, and I thought it'd be a good time to take a look at it. We're going to do three things. First, we're going to look at how good or bad Social Security is doing. When does it run out of money, and what are sort of the consequences if it does? We'll take a brief look at ways we could fix Social Security, but what it would take to make it fully solvent. And then finally, I'll just quickly show you how you can anticipate a possible cut in Social Security benefits in your retirement planning if you want to. So let's dive right in. I want to start with the press release that the Social Security Administration released. This was just about a week and a half ago. And again, I'll link to everything I show you below the video. And I want to go to one specific point that's probably the most important, and I've highlighted it. And what this says is it says when the combined trust funds, now let me just stop there. They're talking about two of the four trust funds, because there's some Medicare trust funds, but what they're talking about is old age and survivor insurance, OASI, what you and I call Social Security, and also the disability insurance fund. So when they talk about combined funds, they're combining those two funds together. That's going to become important in just a minute. So they say, hey, when you combine those funds, we're good until 2035. Based on projections, they are depleted in 2035. And at that time, assuming that Congress doesn't change anything, doesn't take any action, they'll be able to pay out 83% of the scheduled benefits. So that was the press release. And I thought, okay, fair enough. I've got the numbers. I can share with my YouTube buddies that you'll get 83 cents on the dollar of Social Security starting in 2035 if Congress doesn't act. It turns out that's actually not correct. There's some nuance here that we need to look at. And so I thought, well, I'll go to the report itself and I'll just confirm what the press release is telling us. So I pulled up the report, and again, I'll link to this below the video. Here it is. And it's 277 pages long. Yeah, so I decided, no, I don't think I'm going to read that. And I opened up one of the AI tools I use. It's called Notebook LM. It's put out by Google. And one of the great things it does, I can upload, which I did, that 277-page report. It gives me a nice summary over here. And I can ask it questions. And you can see I asked it a lot more than what you see here. But I asked it a bunch of questions about this report. Mainly, hey, when does Social Security run out, and how will benefits be affected? And what the AI tool told me was it's not 2035, it's 2033. And you won't get 83% of your benefits, you'll get 79%. And I'm thinking, well, that can't be right. I just read the press release. I mean, that's got to be correct, right? I mean, AI is just wrong. So I said to AI, I said, can you point out in the report where it says what you claim it says? And it actually gave me a page number. Here it is. Boom. It's page 67. This paragraph right here. Under the intermediate assumptions, the Social Security Trust Fund, blah, 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 will be depleted 2033. Sure enough, it turns out AI was right. And what will the benefits be? 79%. So what in the world is going on, and why did the government, the Social Security Administration, issue a press release that said 2035 and 83%? Here's the deal. Under current law, the Social Security Fund and the Disability Insurance Fund are two legally separate entities run independently of each other. The Social Security Administration is not allowed to dip into the Disability Fund to pay Social Security benefits. It can't dip into the Social Security Fund to pay disability benefits. It's not allowed to do that. And when you look at these two funds separately, it turns out that the Disability Fund is doing quite well. It'll be able to pay out 100% of benefits, basically, as long as the Board of Trustees project, which is 75 years, it's doing great. Social Security, as we know, not doing well, and that's why we get that 2033 date and 79% of the benefits. If you combine the two, if the Social Security Administration could take from either fund to pay the other, then we get out to 2035 and 83% of the benefits. And so the press release is kind of, maybe trying to put the best positive spin on the report as it possibly can. But when we look at just Social Security, it's 2033 and 79% of the benefits. That's the number you need to know. Now, could Congress authorize the Social Security Administration to in some way combine those two funds? Absolutely they could, and they have in the past in different ways. Back in the early 1980s, they had a limited authorization where they could borrow from one fund for a limited period of time. They could do that again, I suppose. They also can change the allocation of payroll taxes, where that money goes to the different funds. They actually did that more recently back in 2015. So could they take action? Sure. And I suppose maybe there's a good argument that if there weren't any other changes to more fully fund Social Security or perhaps cut benefits in order to make the fund solvent, maybe they would allow that, and they would allow some sort of combining of the two funds or borrowing from one to help the other. And in that case, maybe the 2035 date and 83% of the benefits is what we'd actually experience, I suppose. But as things stand now under current law, 2033 is the date you need to know. 79% of Social Security benefits is the number you need to know. So now, what could they do to fix it? Well, of course, they could raise taxes, cut benefits, or both. How big would that have to be? Well, how much would they have to raise taxes by, or how much would they have to cut benefits by to make Social Security solvent? Well, let's take a look. It's in that same 277-page report, and here it is, this paragraph right here, and it says, if we're going to raise taxes, what we have to do is raise the payroll tax by 3.33%, up to a total of 15.73%. And I know you probably can't read that. I'll make it a little bigger, but trust me, that's what it says. The 15.73 would be half paid by employer, half paid by the employee. Now, by the way, that's not the only way you could do it, right? You could also increase the amount of income that's subject to Social Security tax. But in the report, they look at it from simply a perspective of how much would you have to increase payroll taxes, 3.33%. And by the way, that's if you do it now. It's not if you wait, if you do it now. If you want to cut benefits to make Social Security solvent, you've got to cut it by 20.8%. And again, you got to do it now. Now, or of course, as they point out, you could do some combination of the two. They also point out that if you wait, as you might expect, it gets worse. They even show an increase in taxes of 4.02%, basically if you wait until you really have a problem, or a permanent reduction of 24, we'll call it 25% of the benefits, or again, some combination of the two. Now, so far, I know this has not been the feel-good video of the day. I'm just giving you the numbers. That's what they're reporting. That's when it's going to be depleted, what the cuts would look like, what they could do to fix it, whether it's raising taxes, lowering benefits, or both. I think the bigger question now is, what do we do about it when we plan for retirement? And I do think we should run scenarios that assume a cut. My instinct tells me it's not going to happen. Somehow they'll figure out a way not to cut benefits, but I'd rather be safe, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So how do we do that? I want to show you two different tools. One for determining when you want to claim Social Security, and the other just for planning what your income will look like in retirement and how it will affect your retirement plan. So let's do that now. We'll jump over first to Open Social Security. This is a free tool developed by Mike Piper. He's been on the show. You can check that video out. In the tool, it's a very simple tool to use. You can use it as a single person, married, divorced, or widower. And if you click this little toggle here, it opens up a bunch of options, one of which is a possible future cut in Social Security benefits. And when you click that option, what it does is it adds this question right here. Assume future benefit cuts, there'll be future cuts. You can say no, or if you say yes, you can then put in what those cuts will be and when they will happen. So we could say, okay, in 2033, they'll be reduced by 21%. And you can then get a recommended claiming strategy. Again, you'd have to fill in all of this information up here based on the assumption that those benefits will get cut. So if you haven't claimed Social Security yet and you want to look at the options, you can look at them with the assumption that benefits will be cut. I suppose you could also put in 2035 and that 17% number. That's if they combine disability with Social Security, and run that analysis as well. And obviously consider that in your decisions. Now, what about a more robust retirement plan? The planner I use is New Retirement, and they are an advertiser on this show. So keep that in mind. I always like to disclose that. But by the way, what I'm going to show you, you could do in just about any tool, I think, because there's an easy way to account for Social Security cuts, even if the tool doesn't provide sort of an easy way to do it. And that is to simply create an expense for it. So for example, in new retirement, we could project what our benefits will be, say in 2033, because they're going to get adjusted for inflation. So yes, we have to make some assumptions about inflation. And then we could cut those by 21%, right? Well, how would we do that? Well, let's imagine that 21% just came out to, I'll just make up a number, $1,000 a month. We could simply add an expense, right? And we could call it, we could just call it Social Security cut, $1,000 expense, and we could have the start age. Now, we'd have to adjust for inflation for the starting period. So we're assuming that on an inflation-adjusted basis, out now 9 years, that it would be $1,000. Once the expense starts, new retirement adjusts it for inflation. So we could come here to, I guess, January 2033, and we could say it's for lifetime, and we could save that expense. And there you go. Of course, we can see it affects this. This is a demo plan. It's how it affects your plan, of course, will depend on all of the different assumptions and data you have in your plan. And then we can look at how it affects the overall chance. In this case, I actually had expenses down to, I think, $6 a month because I was testing something. But if we make it more realistic, and you'll see how it affects your overall plan. And you can even create that expense as a separate scenario rather than put it in your base plan. You could come up here and create a new scenario and add a new scenario, and we could just call it SS cuts, import data from your baseline plan, and then go in and add that expense so that you could compare your baseline plan that assumes no cuts with this new scenario that shows Social Security cuts and how those two plans compare. I think that's worth doing. Again, I find it hard to believe that Congress is going to actually allow Social Security benefits to be cut, at least that significantly. I could see them perhaps raising the full retirement age as they've done in the past. I find it hard to believe they're going to actually allow Social Security benefits to be cut by 20%. But if you wanted to plan for it, or at least see how it would affect your plan, that's one way to do it in new retirement, and I think you could follow a similar strategy in just about any good retirement planning software. So there you go. Hope this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Be happy to help you out any way I can. And until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.